Guys, this video is brought to you by our friends at Lucy. Lucy was founded by Caltech scientists on a mission to reduce tobacco-related harm with a tobacco alternative that doesn't suck. As former smokers dissatisfied with the traditional nicotine options, they knew there had to be a better way for adult tobacco users. This was a big challenge, but they did it with their innovative nicotine gum. With 4 milligrams of nicotine in each piece, you can get a dose anywhere, anytime. I encourage my friends who smoke to choose Lucy gum over cigarettes or vapes for all the obvious reasons. As you know, nicotine is addictive, so use discretion. Lucy gum comes in 3 delicious flavors: wintergreen, cinnamon, and pomegranate. Visit lucy.co. Use the promo code Chael20. That's going to save you 20% off your entire order. That's Lucy, Lucy.co, or click on the link in the description. Remember, nicotine is addictive, so use discretion. Eddie Alvarez got asked about Conor McGregor, and, Eddie, former opponent, former champion of the world. This is a guy to listen to. He's got a history with Conor. He follows Conor's career. So he weighed in on, he said, Conor needs to harden as a man. And Eddie went on to elaborate what his definition of that meaning was, and in large part, it had to do with Conor listening to a coach, getting with a team, and going through the process. I don't know if I would word it the same way as Eddie, but that doesn't make me right or Eddie wrong. I just don't know that I would word it the same way because we have a broad stroke term about discipline and sacrifice and hard work. And I can tell you, having been in the room, having been in the practice room with world and Olympic, with Pride and WEC and UFC champions, many of them, they didn't work harder than anybody else. In fairness, the whole room worked very hard, and they worked very hard. But the hardest worker is a little bit of a broad stroke. I mean, I see some guys get ground down, is what I'm talking about. I will see some guys, the less they train, the better they go out there and perform. Dan Henderson would be an excellent example. And Dan always believed he worked harder than everybody else, but I would watch him. I would see him. And then Dan would fly over to Japan and knock somebody out in the first round. Dan ended up with a world title fight in the UFC opposite Anderson Silva. And that was the first time that I saw Dan really with structure buckle down. He brought a cage out to his house. He brought a team in, moved everybody in. What he ate, what he slept, how he was going to train was the first time it was truly structured and truly all around him. And I'm not here to tell you that he didn't beat Anderson. I'm talking about the performance. Dan had better performances. He was one of these guys who, the more scattered he appeared to be, the less focused he appeared to be, the better outcome he would get. Again, to stay on the topic of Dan Henderson, Dan retired from the sport of wrestling. Okay? 2-time Olympian, retired from the sport of wrestling. And 10 days before the National Open, some of his friends, Randy Couture, a couple of his friends got a hold of him and talked him into entering the U.S. Open. So he lost just enough weight to make weight with absolutely no workouts and won the U.S. Open, won the national championship. And so it was just one of these times where you realize what makes one guy tick isn't necessarily what makes the other guy tick. And I bring you to this only because as it ties into Eddie talking about Conor being hardened. I don't know that Conor has to change a lot of things. I would argue that Conor needs to go back to what it was that got him there in the first place. Now, I don't know what those are. Those are questions internally for Conor to ask himself. But it will be important for Conor to ask himself, what is it I used to do? And you might even write it down. You might even write, how many miles did I run and about what time of the day did I do it and how many times a week did I do that? And was I late to practice generally by 5 or 10 minutes or was I the first one to practice and I showed up a half hour early? Whatever it is, whatever the recipe was for Conor, we have undeniable evidence that it worked. We know that it worked. So for Conor to return to that, and how hard is that to do? Has he burnt bridges with people? I have no reason to believe that he has. I just know he used to train in Ireland, and for this last training camp, went to like Portugal or somewhere equally as bizarre as Portugal for MMA. It was some very bizarre place. I'm going, this doesn't make any kind of sense. Your coach is up the road, your gym is up the road, and your teammates are up the road. I have argued for you guys and maintained for years now that one of the keys to Stipe Miocic's success is him being a fireman. Because being a fireman is something Stipe respects and he's consistent with. It's one part of his schedule that he never changed. Not for media, not for fame, not for competition, not for preparation. He's going to be in that fire hall, ready to save somebody's life if that bell goes off. But because of that, it did keep him grounded. It did keep him in the same bed at night. It did keep him on a familiar schedule. Now he can get to the gym with the same coaches and the same team. And every now and then, fellas, there's room for shakeup. To each his own. I would never sit back and judge, but I will observe. And I will accurately observe and tell you the guys that are with the same coaches and the same team as when they were climbing the ranks are the guys that go the furthest once they make it to the top. It's the brand new guys. I will tell you what, I have never had anything destroy my team, my own personal team of Team Quest, more than the Ultimate Fighter. I have one teammate to this day that is still my teammate prior to going through that process. And what had happened, one teammate after the next, and I would never see him again. They would never return to the gym. Somebody would grab a hold of them, right? You don't have access to better people once you have a level of success. You have access to a better level of scumbag. The people that come to you and want investments or have opportunities or sign here or shake my hand and let's do this will be no different once you have your name out there and notoriety. They will just be a better class of scumbag. They will have a little bit nicer suit on and a little bit more polished up shoes, and their hair is going to be combed a little bit better, and they're equally as devious. And I only share that to you because it happened with me and affected me. I would see teammates go off to the Ultimate Fighter. Ultimate Fighter is a big secret. Not just the results of what happened, the mere fact that you're even on it. So it took a couple of seasons before myself and the other guys in the room realized when guys were going on vacation for 2 months that was code word for they got selected for the Ultimate Fighter. But it literally took several seasons before we realized that. So they did a great job of keeping it a secret, but it was always said they would never come back. Somebody would get a hold of them. Somebody would always tell them what their worth was, how they should be marketed, what their sponsors should be paying. And it was one of these things where they would become so disconnected, and not one of my teammates was wrong. Not one of them. Somebody came and told them something that they wanted to be true. And all of us as human beings, we all tend to believe what it is we want to believe. So they just had guys that were slick. They were a little bit more polished. They spent a little bit of time in Hollywood, get a hold of them, grab them, convince them they need to be doing this. And then you have some coach that's doing the same thing. And, oh, hey, that coach you were with, boy, he did a great job in the amateurs, but in the pros, you got to train this way. And all of a sudden, now you're with that coach. And I will just maintain for you that Stipe Miocic is very locked down. And I've always thought that that was one of the keys to his success. Always a reason where Stipe never got heavy, never gained a bunch of weight out of training camp. He never looked different. He's never surrounded by different people. I argue that one of those reasons is because of his commitment to the firehouse. I argue for you that it's a geographical location. Look, a ton of great fighters aren't coming out of Cleveland. You got one great fighter coming out of Cleveland. But if Stipe could go in and do it and make it all the way to the organization, make it to the main card, make it to the main event, make it to a top contender, make it to a championship, why would he ever change that? And I know you guys agree with me. I know you, yeah, Chael, of course, Stipe shouldn't change it. But so many other people do. They're not like Stipe. They don't come with a brand of loyalty. They don't come and feel that team effect. I'd have never left my team. Couldn't even imagine leaving my team, but not everybody has that. Somewhere they just didn't get grabbed, and maybe that's the team's fault that they didn't welcome them in and make them feel as though you were a member here. I did feel that way, and I never would have left, but I'm only sharing with you. I can't say because I did it that's the only thing that's the right thing to do. I'm not one of those humans. I'm not one of those guys that go, well, this is what my parents did with me, and I turned out just fine. No. Can learn from everything. the good and the bad, but this is one thing that I will observe, and it's one thing that when I keep seeing this change, I keep seeing the results change. Every time I read about somebody's with a new team or a new camp, or they've got this new system, and there's some catchphrases that if you ever hear, do not ever bet on that guy again. Anybody that ever uses these words, I'm working smarter, not harder, it's over. It's over. That's a phrase that you use to justify your newfound laziness. It's one of those things. And it's one of these things that coaches will do to grab a hold of you. You have the opposite coach as well, by the way. Where if you go, oh my God, I got the strength and conditioning coach and he's the greatest in the world, man. We run 4 miles every day. You will have a new coach come in, make you run 5 miles and go, well, I guess I'm the better coach. And a lot of fighters will fall for it and go, man, I've never worked harder in my whole life. It's what? I mean, what are you talking about? That isn't the job of the coach to just lay out the curriculum. It is the job of the coach to motivate the athlete to get him to do the curriculum. That's where the greats, that's where the Clayton Hires come in. That's where the Javier Mendez's come in. That's where the Trevor Whitmans come in. They can motivate. Henry Hoof is a fine example. They can motivate the athlete to then get him and go give that extra mile. If you don't have a team like that, yeah, maybe you still are in the forming phase. Maybe you do need to look around so somebody makes you feel that way, makes you feel important, can motivate you. But once you find it, I can't encourage you any clearer. Stick with them.